Esto antiguamente, todo esto lo que tú ves acá, era una vega. Acá habían llamos, corderos, habían cabras, habían parinas, patos, de todo.
Snow meltwater from underground streams was what kept this valley fertile. Today, that water is being redirected for industrial use and in massive quantities.
Yo desde acá, donde tú ves, con todo este desierto que tú ves acá, yo te invito a ti a que tú seas un cuidador y seas un defensor de corazón de nuestras tierras. ¿Ah? ¿Estás de acuerdo?
Sí.
Ya, ya, hijo.
But the challenge may be far bigger than a boy could imagine. His home sits right next to one of the richest mineral fields on the planet. The ground may be parched of water, but it's full of precious metals. Gold, silver, iron, copper, lithium. All these have been laid down here by geological processes unique to the desert environment. Extracting the mineral wealth can be hugely profitable. That's why more than 700 mines are now operating in the Atacama. Chile is the world's biggest producer of copper, and 25% of the world's lithium lies beneath its surface rock and salt lakes. Lithium is an essential component in many familiar industrial products, like car batteries. Without it, the modern world would outrun itself. But the extreme desert environment that forged the Atacama's underground wealth is also the biggest obstacle to extracting it. Mining requires water, and on an industrial scale. On a daily basis, the residents of Quiagua use 20 times less water than people in the United States. The water they are allowed to use has to be brought here by truck.
No hay mucha agua. Aquí el agua es bien concreta. Hay que ocupar lo justo y necesario.
Quiagua fights to survive, despite the record-breaking drought and the dryness of the landscape all around. Remarkably, there's evidence of human settlement here stretching back 10,000 years and more, longer than almost anywhere else in South America. An ancient civilization known as the Chinchurro flourished here. The landscape itself bears the evidence. The dry desert has preserved this rock art, prehistoric statements in stone, still visible thousands of years later. And there's other proof of ancient human presence here in Quiagua. Proof that's dramatic and macabre. Mummies. Vessels of communication between the living and the spirit world. The ancients painted their dead and mummified them with open eyes and mouths. In magic rituals, they were said to see this world and the next, and to speak to both. The mummies have been dated as roughly 2,000 years old. In any other museum, precious finds like these would have to be preserved in a dehumidified environment. But caretaker Felisa Sosa isn't concerned about that. She knows the atmosphere here is so exceptionally dry that nothing rots.
Es una niñita. Ella tenía el pelito en la boca que se le sale, muy rebelde el pelo, se le cae. Ahí está.
One body in Felisa's collection has a quite separate history. This man is from Asia. He died just a century and a half ago. He was a slave, a Chinese coolie, tricked into crossing the Pacific and forced to work in mining or farming. Tests show he had an enlarged liver. It's probable his masters paid him nothing but alcohol. His body was abandoned where he died. The desert did the rest, preserving his body. Graphic evidence of Kiowa's slave trading past. In choosing to trade here, his 19th century masters were no fools. Kiowa was an oasis. The life-giving water flowed in the form of the river Loa. Fed by Andean glaciers, the Loa is the main watercourse in the Atacama. At 440 kilometers, it's Chile's longest river. For thousands of years, the waters of the Loa supported a thriving agricultural society in this valley. The signs here still read, "Welcome to the spa town of Kiowa." But the reality today is very different. A 125 kilometers upstream from Kiowa is one of the world's largest copper mines. Run by government-owned Codelco, it's the only mine in the region that uses toxic compounds of xanthate in the metal extraction process. Tests proved that in 1997 and in the year 2000, levels of xanthate and mercury in the River Loa were extremely high.
Cuando llegó una contaminación, sonaron todos se murió, todo lo que hay a su alrededor mató el agua. Como me explicaba, como petróleo, así como... pero botaba una espuma, tenía mucha espuma esa agua.
Arsenic levels were several thousand times higher than normal. It was a fatal dose.
Tanto los camarones como los pejerreyes, la alfalfa murió en ese tiempo. Los animales no se les podía dar de esa agua, que era el agua dulce, hasta que pasara el proceso de la contaminación.
What happened next sealed Kiowa's fate. Developers offered to relieve people's burdens by buying their polluted water. In Chile, water is a private commodity. Even in the Atacama, people can sell their usage rights to the highest bidder. Unable to farm the polluted and unproductive lands, many in Kiowa felt they had little choice but to sell up and leave.
Entonces no es que puedan echarle la culpa que vendió la gente el agua. Mi padre fue uno de los que vendió también sus derechos de agua.
75% of the town sold their polluted water to the industrialists. Now, Kiowa is dying. Almost all the young have left in search of better opportunities in the city. But the story isn't unique to Kiowa. Boom and bust is a recurring theme in the history of the Atacama. The desert is full of ghost towns. Settlements that prospered with the discovery of mineral wealth, only to be abandoned once their resources had been plundered. But the Atacama is far from being mined out. Millions of years ago, this desert was covered by a huge inland sea. Over time, the boundless sunshine of the desert dried out the waters, leaving a crystal residue